My name is Paul Shelley, and welcome to TheAstroHistorian. This is a channel dedicated to exploring and explaining the lore of sci-fi and space universes and discussing their impact. Today, we'll be talking about the universe of Star Citizen, specifically IAE 2954, coming to you live from the floor of Origin Jumpworks. We're going to be talking about the origin of Origin Jumpworks, as well as all of the ships on the floor here available for you to come enjoy and see. I'm also joined live by a bunch of folks here. Say hello, folks.
Hello.
Yep, let me choose this up a little bit. So I'll be talking in game as well. Do find every year that we get one or so person who comes party lead the group. A couple people who show up on these tours and go, oh wow, these are nice. So, all right, with that, let's move on to move a little closer, and we'll talk a little bit about Origin Jumpworks. So the luxury manufacturer that is Origin Jumpworks was founded sometime in the 2750s. Their main kind of role was to build engines. Specifically, if you notice, those of you who are in Europe or understand international sort of businesses, you'll notice that Origin Jumpworks is sometimes called Origin Jumpworks GmbH, and that is the German abbreviation for incorporation. And that's because Origin Jumpworks is founded in Germany, Cologne, Germany, to be specific, on the banks of the Rhine, and they mostly spent their early years in the mid-28th century building engines for super yachts and super capital ships. They worked with RSI and Aegis, and most of the engines built by Origin are still being used by large corporations. Because of their origin point, I wouldn't be surprised if the Javelin engines, for instance, were built by Origin. Same with the Bengal and all the other major engines for capital ships, because they were just really well-tuned engines. Within 10 years, they were producing and selling mid-scale transport, and within 50, their well-paying customers were neck and neck with RSI. So they went from being just an engine manufacturer to being a ship manufacturer by the end of the 29th century. Now, we do know that their early work was not actually in luxury. They did build some like bespoke yachts. Like they built a lot of stuff that was for like pleasure yachts and stuff like that, but they weren't building the 890 Jump. They were building two specific order of ships. More like a traditional ship manufacturer today, where they might build like a small line of ships, but they wouldn't build like 1,000. Like you'd get like 3 for your trouble. But a lot of their early ships were actually cargo haulers. Specifically the 600, which was originally a cargo hauler, which we will go back to in a moment. But they were well known throughout the empire for their work. And when the Messers fell and the cargo crisis happened, when there was just a lack of cargo available, the 600i became, or the 600, it wasn't called the I, the 600 became one of the most popular cargo hauling ships in the market because of its massive internal cargo bay. We don't actually have the stats on the inside of the 600, how much cargo it carried, but we do know that the exterior, which you see right here, these two ships right here, the exterior of the 600 has not changed much at all since its original creation. So the 28th century was mostly focused on them building the 600 and kind of taking advantage of the cargo situation, or 29th century. And one of the big things that they did was the 890 Jump up here. That really got them into, we'll talk about it here in a moment, but that really got them into building stuff for just the average market. Specifically, we'll talk about that here in a moment. once they got them there, they became well known for being this super luxurious, super exclusive ship manufacturer, but they wanted to do more. So they expanded their line at the end of the 29th century with what was called the X3 project. Now, X3 was founded by two brothers, Otto and Andreas Lang. Both of them were brought on to the project because of their own incredible successes with both the 600 and the 890 programs in terms of making things a lot more efficiently. They're very young when they first got brought onto Origin Jumpworks, but their skill was seen immediately by the management and was brought them on to kind of push them up the line. They built the X3 as a test prototype. Effectively, they wanted to make a ship that would be able to be like a commercial ship, something that would be available for the average citizen, or at least reachable by the average citizen. But they was still the style and grace of Origin, and it premiered at IAE 2889, and it was an amazing success. People loved it. They took a test flight with it, flew it around. Other people who had a chance to pilot it said it handled amazingly. It looked beautiful. So the brothers then were given the task of actually producing the first lineup they would ever do. Oh, I forgot to mention the 100 series, but we'll talk about the 100 series when we get to it. The X3 wasn't the first attempt. The 100 was the first attempt, and it was an abysmal failure. Then that led to the X3's creation. Now, Otto Lang worked on the 200 series, which was called an observation craft, and Andreas was the one who got to design the 300 series. Both of their work would go on to inspire other designers, like they don't have this one in here. It's the X85, I think? 85X? Alberto Vara was the one who went on to create the X1 series, but they also were brought on board in this time period. So there's lots of really important names in the Origin family that we actually know of, unlike other manufacturers, of who actually designed these ships and why. Because all Origin ships are works of art, and that's kind of what Origin prides itself on. Now, the big controversy around Origin happened in 2915, when in 2915 they specifically moved their headquarters. They had been on Earth for 200 years. 150 years. No, 200 years. Yeah, 200 years. I'm going back and forth because 2750 was when they were founded. So it'd been 100 years, been 2850. So that would be probably, yeah, more like 150 years-ish. A little over 150 years. But they decided that they needed to move. Specifically, the person in charge at the time was Jennifer Friskers, who is still currently the CEO. She moved their headquarters from Earth in Cologne to New Austin on Terra, which was at that point originally known as responsible for the Crabbo chain and Omega Foods, similar to, I think, the other Omega brand that we have here. And this made them very unpopular with people who were Earth-centric, because they saw them as a betrayal of their attraction to Earth, or their connection to Earth. The Earth-Terra split being the main focus of the story of Star Citizen in Beyond with 1.0 and beyond. This is one of those examples of how even ship manufacturers who are arguably not really important to the UAE beyond luxury status are taking sides, and this side, it's causing significant political and economic sort of shift. And their moving to Terra caused a lot of other people to suggest and to think about moving to Terra, because this was such a huge mainstay of Earth. I mean, they were building for Aegis and RSI, like engines for them. they are pretty important. So, since then, they've done very well. They've increased their lineup significantly and have proven to be very popular, even at the sort of budget rate of luxury that they sometimes are seen as. So with that, let's go over and talk about the 890, because it's ironically one of the oldest ships that has the sort of Origin style. This ship was designed specifically with Origin's future in mind. Now, the story goes that the acting CEO in 2825, named Kane Yulson, wanted to create what he called the flagship of the Origin fleet. They said there was going to be called the 890 Jump. Now, this was before this, most high-end corporate spacecraft were just sort of a mix of different modifications. They take a ship that was either already being built and modify it into a luxury ship, or a bespoke ship that was specifically built for a specific thing, custom designs. So the initial cost and maintenance running costs would be so high that these would only be available to small groups. The cost of buying a yacht or of adapting another ship for a yacht was extraordinarily expensive. Only the wealthiest of the wealthy could get so. So Yulson wanted that the 890 Jump could be a yacht for everyone. Basically, a yacht for the nouveau riche. It's still going to be a yacht. It's still expensive, as you can see. It's a capital ship. But they could build them on an assembly line, which means that they were cheaper to make and maintain and repair than these bespoke models. And they said it was going to take a lot of money, and it was. The main designer was named Hadrian Wells. Now, Hadrian was specifically a industrial designer. He wasn't a ship designer. He built stuff for like factories and stuff like that. And after 18 months of development, they had a general idea of what they wanted to build. And they wanted to make sure that the ship could make use of existing docking facilities and repair yards, despite this sort of unique aesthetic that it gained. Not Hadrian Walls? No. Now, this was... Well, I'll just read it for you. Origin quickly invested in broad simulations in order to allow a ship to make the use of existing docking facilities and repair yards to fight its different design aesthetic. A large problem in the development process was that for the first time in modern aerospace industry, everyone could see right into their progress. Ship developers typically do not announce projects to the public until the contract had officially been signed or a prototype had flown. Because of this open development, the company received a lot of critical comments, immediately seeing the series of snags and issues with the prototype as Yulson's, quote, 50 billion credit disaster, unquote. Stock dropped dramatically. This thing nearly tanked the company. But once the 890... see... Within 18 months, this is within the first 18 months. But after the first 18 months, within 2 years, they basically shut up about the 890. So we're not going to talk about the 890 anymore, and that stabilized Origin's stock. So the ship itself was released on March 2857 at a special event in Earth's orbit, where they revealed the production prototype of the 890 Jump. When it was first revealed, it became a massive hit. Their stock exploded, and they released the ship the next year in 2858. So, postmortem would indicate that this... okay... Origin promoted the ship to an audience they feared were not ready to accept its radical design, and spent significant sums of marketing the ship to attempt to associate it with luxury in typical ways. Their postmortem would indicate this was unnecessary, and so they quickly lowered the marketing budget. In fact, new owners are eager to spread the word, and pre-orders quickly filled within 7 years of production. Origin will manufacture many models and continue to improve the ship through the following century, producing 19 different models. So this model right here is actually the most recent model, which was produced in 2948. I want to say 49. So yeah, there's been 19 different versions of the 890 jump, and this is just the latest one. Oh, am I muted in Discord? Oh, that's unusual. There we go. Sorry about that. Those of you in Discord. All right. So that's the 890. Now, what makes this ship unique is beyond its, built on an assembly line, is its size. I do not have time to go through the entirety of this, but needless to say, it has a full restaurant, boardroom, pool, spa, foyer, like observational lounge. It has its own bedrooms for the guests. It has a fully operational kitchen and crew space for the crew. It also has a battle bridge for when the bridge becomes too difficult to function. It has multiple turrets for defense, and has I believe, capital class engine or power plant. I'm muted in game. No, I'm not muted in game. Let me double check to make something real quickly. Sorry about this, y'all. No, I'm definitely not muted. All right. Yeah, and the hot tub. All right, from this isn't the oldest vessel. It is one of the oldest vessels that is still around. This is sort of a newer vessel that's sort of old. The 600 series. Now, the 600 series was made famous because of its use as a cargo ship during the cargo crisis of the mid-29th century. In the early 30th century, Origin designers wanted to change up the design of the ship to make it more of a luxury ship. With the success of the 890 jump, they found that there was a lot of call for a, luxury vessel, but they wanted one that was a little bit more affordable. If the 890 jump was for your, medium-sized, large business owners or, executives, your executive class, your C-suites, this was for your small business owners, your wealthy small business owners, designed for both practicality purposes as sort of like a flying, glamping, motor carriage almost, but also a explorer ship and of course a luxury explorer as well. This front area, you see that cockpit bubble for those who are watching? That is where the bedroom is. Your bed sits back behind. Would like this bed to face it, but your bed is right behind this. So when you get up and you look around behind your bed, you'll see the full view of that cockpit, which is really nice. It's really fine. Now there are two versions of it. There's the Explorer, which is this one, which has a cargo bay and a small scanning suite, and then we have the Touring version, I believe. The Touring replaces the cargo bay with more beds, so a full suite of beds and a spiral staircase and everything else. But these also, both of them still have bars. They have multiple levels of bars and entertainment suites, and they have cockpit and some significant guns. I believe the guns on the 600 are, I think, size 5s or size 7. No, they're size 5s. They're like 3 size 5s on it, so they're pretty punchy when they hit. Someone's going to correct me because they say they're size 4s, but yeah, 3 size 5s is pretty punchy for a ship of its class. Very few ships below its size have that amount of firepower. All right, with that, let's move on to let's go to Hall 4. I think Hall 4 is closed off. Maybe it's this direction. Hall 3. I'm going to look at the map real quick. Wasn't there a big controversy regarding the 600 launch and the two versions in game or in lore? Let's go over here. Follow me. Now, if you're watching this, hopefully you've also watched my latest video that I released just the day before this, called The Complete History of Drake Interplanetary. I did not do a lore tour for Drake because I wanted to get that video out, and so far people seem to enjoy it. It goes over the entire history of Drake from its founding to today, through its trials and tribulations, different CEOs, different ships that was manufactured, and other smaller facts about, like, the VLT-3, which would eventually become the Vulture, and the history of the Red and how it existed, and some of the major events that's happened. So there wasn't, not that I know of any lore about the 600i versions, the 600 versions. Okay, so it's weird that we have the 100 as well. All right, let's go over here to the 300 first, and then we'll talk about the rest of these. So, the 300 series. Now, the 300 series has a little bit of a controversy around it. So, the 300 series was hand machined in its initial prototype, and this pre-production prototype took flight in the Frankfurt Cosmodrome on August 3rd, 2897. It was a huge success, but it was also incredibly expensive. The design of the 300 was built by Andres Lang, who didn't just bring in design teams about people who knew how to do flight. He brought in ship design specialists. He brought in like internal what are they called? Like artists and architects and various different professions to build this. The ship exterior was built by aerospace experts. The interior was entirely designed as these sorts of interior designers and carpenters. There is a lot of wood. There was a lot of wood in the original 300 series. It cost, while the actual design worked very, very well, the initial design cost 15 times that of the Aurora. Now, that usually isn't a problem, but the thing is that Origin specifically wanted a ship that was going to be a luxury slight upgrade from the Aurora. So it was going to be more expensive than the Aurora, but not 15 times an Aurora. Just back of the math, brain work here. The Aurora right now is about 200,000 UEC in game. So if I do my calculator math here, $200,000 times 15, that's 3 million. So the original 300i was somewhere around 3 million credits to produce or to purchase. So that was not okay. So they had to modify it. And while before this, the board had given Lang a lot of leeway because he had built the TX3, they started reining him in, and that really pissed him off because he really wanted to have more say. And with these chains, this became a huge internal battle, and a bunch of executives resigning in defiance, resigned because of Lang's own sort of bullheaded stupidity. And it was a nightmare. But eventually they managed to take some outside consultants who would work things out. And the result was a spacecraft that was about 4 times that of the Aurora, which is a lot more reasonable. It was more reasonable to Origin. Now, the thing that made the 300 series super important is that this ship is the fastest ship in the verse. It's not actually the fastest ship in the verse, but at the time of its creation, the laws on how fast you could go in space were changing. You see, most ships had internal speed regulators, so they weren't allowed to go above a certain speed. I imagine you could mess with them so you can go faster, but the idea being that it was illegal to go above a certain speed, so most ships were not designed to go above that speed because there's no need to. However, in 2898, the High Court of the UAE passed down a verdict called Pressman versus United Empire of Earth, which Pressman was arguing that with increases in safety and other technologies that had happened in the last 100 years, the speeds were far too low, and the argument that they were for safety did not make any sense because being slower doesn't necessarily mean you're safer with modern standards. This meant that basically the Department of Transportation were forced to increase the speed limiters on ships. And the only ship that was available at the time, right when this was handed down, the first ship that was being designed was the 300 series. So the 300 series got to be the first ship to take advantage of this speed change. So for a brief moment in time, for I think probably about 20, 30 years, the 300 was the fastest ship you could purchase, and faster than even some, luxury vehicles that were designed to be fast from other manufacturers. It was an insane success because they could just market it as the fastest ship in the verse. And on 2899, on December 18th, the 300 series premiered in a special ceremony at none other than Baikonur Cosmodrome, the place where the first human took off for orbit in the 1960s, where they unveiled the 300 and had it kind of do some aeronautical moves and go up to space and back down and stuff like that. It was such a famous reveal that it became the face of popular spacecraft. This ship was on every magazine, in every article. When you looked at something about the future of space transportation, the 300 was everywhere because of its speed, its aesthetics, its cost, everything. So that is the 300. Now, the 300 is still one of the fastest ships in the verse. It is still one of the better ships in terms of its value because it does have an interior living space. And down here, if I can get access to it, so the button's over here somewhere, right? Button, where are you, button? I don't think I can. You're gonna have to, oh, thank you. You found it. It has a cargo bay. Now, I believe this cargo bay holds 6 SCU of cargo or 8 SCU of cargo. It holds 8 SCU of cargo. So this puts it at the same level as a Avenger Titan, but much faster, originally at least, and it has a better interior. The wing points, wing mounts are all size 3s, I believe, but the front might be a size 4. Yeah, they're all size 3s. It has 3 size 3 hard points, and it has missiles as well. Now, let's move over the 300 series to the best of the 300 series. My opinion, obviously, being an entrepreneur of very valuable small quantity items, we have the 315P. Now, this had a unique pass to it as well, because it was designed slightly afterwards. So in 2930, the Origin 315P was released and was launched as what is called a Pocket Explorer at the time. This was a interesting attempt at marrying sort of 300 lines with improved power output and a newly developed scanning package. But because even though it was sort of a weird duck, because it does also have, it has 8 SCU of cargo, but it also has an additional, let me find out, oh, it's in the front right there. It has an additional cargo bay in front of it. If I can get that down. Oh no, this is both of them. For a total of 12 SCU of cargo in the back here. It also has a tractor beam, which can be used to help load and offload other things. While this was supposed to be a pocket explorer, it really found its niche with miners of all things. And I don't mean small people. I mean people who hit rocks. Miners were using the 315P because it had a much better scanning package than most mining vessels did, and it had a decent cargo capacity, so it could take some of the ore back with it, and it could assist in loading and unloading of cargo to larger ships with its tractor beam. So, yeah, this is the 315P, first released in 2930. It's important to note that the 300 series was originally just a 300i, and then years afterwards they released all these different variants. The 325A. So this is a unique history because the 325A was released. It's not telling me what was released here. I believe it was released in the 2430s. This ship has a classified past. It was likely that the UAE saw the use of the 300, saw the speed and the versatility of the 300, and commissioned Origin to build a military version of the 300 series, which they did with the 325A. However, it wasn't fully accepted for whatever reason. It's still classified, so we don't know exactly why it was never accepted. Instead, it was sort of left as it was, and eventually when the contract ran out, they decided to take all of the stuff that the military specific secret stuff off and replace it with their own in-house and contracted versions, including a Willis Ops targeting scanner. So this is similar to the Reliant Tana, sort of a baby of Vanguard. It has a size 4 weapon mount on the front, plus 2 size 3s in the back. It has an upgraded scanner module, but it has the same speed, maneuverability. It even has the cargo capacity of a typical, I think it's a little bit small. I think there's only 4 SCU in the back here. But it has, some cargo capacity, and it's much, much better fighter than something like the Titan is. It also has the Origin sort of specialty, which is range. This thing can go very far compared to most ships of its size and category. So it's a nice little combat ship, especially for like long range escorts. It is, I think, so technically classified as an interceptor, though. So the 350R has got another interesting history behind it, because this is the thing that would soothe the feathers of Andres Lang. So Andres Lang was very mad that he lost a bunch of his special snowflake stuff that he wanted in the 300. So they gave him, as a compromise, his own specific racing version of the 300 called the 350R. This was this was the first variant to be announced, but in 2903, when they were building the new variants started the work on the new variants of the 300 series, he decided to move away from the project of making the variants to making the 350R. And eventually this would come out, I think around the same time as the 315P, but it was specifically built for Origin's racing team. And after it did well on the track, winning the Murray Cup, it was eventually transferred over to the civilian market. So you can get yourself a 350R yourself. All right, let's go to the center here and talk a little bit about the 100 project. So we'll learn a little bit more about the 100s over there, but we'll get this started off right here. So the 100 is actually the first ship that Origin ever built for the masses. The problem is that the 100 failed as a project. It didn't work well, and they couldn't quite get the design down, which is why they ended up working with the creating the X3 project with the Lang brothers. So this was pre-Lang brothers Origin. And when they were developing a new system, which is, again, something that Origin has become known for is its fuel efficiency. When they're developing a new system called the Air System, the Adaptive Intake Refinery, they realized they needed a ship to sort of showcase this on. So they revived the 100i project, thinking that they could make a starter, beginner sort of spaceship with the Origin sensibilities that had a unique flair to it, that had a unique gimmick to it, to try to test out the air system, but also to give other people kind of an idea of what the air system could do. So this system actually takes in variant particles that are out in the atmosphere, and adapts them into hydrogen fuel. So it should refuel itself as it's flying, meaning it has much higher range than most other ships of its class in terms of hydrogen fuel, allowing it for being a nice touring vessel around the verse. This specifically is the 125A. Like the 300, it has a bunch of different variants. This one specifically has some more guns, but otherwise it has an interior cargo bay just like everything else. All the other 100s. It has a bed, pretty basic Spartan bed, and a cockpit. So I think the other variants, some of them have a kind of cargo bay in the back, but I'm not too sure. We'll go learn about the other variants here in a moment. The X1. So the X1 project was created by Alberto Vara. We don't know exactly when the X1 was first pitched, but I believe it was sometime in the post Drake Dragonfly era, when a lot of different ship manufacturers were trying to catch up with Drake with their hover technology, their hover bike technology. So this, for reference, was done by the same designer as the M50. So you'll see similar design styles in here as well as the M50. These are open top racers designed mostly for racing, but also for some basic use. This is not the 400i CIG. I don't know what you were doing. So this is the X1 Velocity, which is the racing variant. This is the X1 Force, which is a combat variant, which has a gun built into the front, a size 1, I believe. And then the regular X1, which has a size 1 as well. I believe the difference between the Origin X1 and the X1 Force is that the Force actually has a power or a shield generator, if I remember correctly. So yeah, it has a shield. So unlike the other ones, which do not have shields, a lot of bikes don't have shields. They originally did, but a lot of them were removed during some of the design processes in the game. I mean, so this is one of the smallest vehicles to actually have a shield. All right. With that, let's move on to the 100 series, the 85X, and the M50. Is 125 is an interceptor tune? No? Yes, it is. It is like a mini 325A. All right, let's look at, I guess the M50 is downstairs. Is that supposed to be its cargo bay? Is this bugged? Oh, it's probably bugged. Yeah. Its cargo bay is on the outside. This is the one, 135C. So this is the cargo variant of the 100 series with a higher amount of cargo space and a little bit more range than the typical one, but it does also have the air system, just like the 125A. And this is the base 100. You notice that the entry is pretty much the same as the other one, as the 125A. They all have similar sort of entry and exit animations and such. And they have very similar accommodations. The major difference is obviously between their weapons package, their cargo hauling ability, and yeah. All right, the 400i. Now, there's not a lot known about the 400i in lore. What we do know is that it's fairly a recent release, likely released in 2951, sorry. And it's designed as specifically a sort of touring ship. It's a luxury pathfinder. It has some guns for defensive purposes. A lot of it are basically defensive purposes. And it also has its own bespoke. It was on the landing gear last time I checked. Yeah, they are. It has its own bespoke X1 hangar. So this hangar right here is designed for a X1. Someone's just chilling in there. Now, I'll show off a little bit of this interior because it's not the 600i. It has its own docking port. These are the component bays, I believe, inside here. And it has this bit of a habitation area. This is, I believe, a common room. No, it's a bedroom. No, it's a bathroom. But you've got the bridge over here. You've got the two bedrooms, both with two beds, so 3 beds total. You've got this is the common space, right? The actual. There we go. The bridge is 3 crew members. So it's a fairly compact vessel designed mostly for exploration purposes. I'm gonna go out the airlock too. Whee! All right. That's the 400i. Let's go down and talk about the X85 and the M50 because they're actually part of the same project. Let's go. Save your questions to the end there, Citizen Joel, but we'll do my best to answer them. All right, the M50. So Alberto Vara designed this in 2918 on specifically July 13th, 2918 was when this was fully completed. The concept was fully completed. This was called Prototype Y. The Y series of ships. And both of these were designed specifically to replace the 325R, to be a bespoke racing vessel. These were designed to win the Murray Cup. So the thing about the M50 was that it wasn't the only ship as part of this program. This was the Y series ship, and it was going up against the Model XVB. The Model XVB and the Y series were both underwent significant changes and adaptations to try to beat each other out, with Vara being in charge of the M50, with the designer Javo Croy with them as well. with them as well. They ran both of them through extensive speed tests, but eventually the Y series was proven to be the victor. Now, the problem with the Y series was that it wasn't quite ready for the racing circuit. But by 2920, it was ready for the general public. So that meant that we're looking at a ship that was designed to be a racer, to be in professional racing, where its racing version wasn't ready, but its public version, publicly available, purchasable version was. So Origin was losing. They had arguably the best ship, the design specifically for racing that they'd ever made. It was ready to go by 2920, but for 3 years they couldn't use it because it wasn't able to actually. It wasn't actually able to function for that. Now, eventually, when it was introduced in 2923, Origin did win the Murray Cup with the pilot Caleb Arallo, and since then it has dominated the racing scene with some of the highest, best scores and such throughout the entire verse. I don't know if that's still the case. I know at one point the Cartu All did beat it in a race, and several other ships have existed, like the Razor, who's taken the throne every so often. But if you are a racing expert, if you're a fan of racing in Star Citizen, let me know how well the M50 is doing. Now, with this, the M50, the Y series, may have won the competition, but the MVK, the MVB, or the XVB, the XVB was not out entirely. Let's go over here. So, this is the model XVB, also known now as the 85X. This was originally the competition for the M50, but when it lost, it was instead taken up as the idea of turning it into a snub ship specifically for that year's model of the 890 Jump. So this was released in 2920 alongside with the new model of the 890 Jump, and has served well in its purpose ever since. It is a two-person ship. It does, I believe, have a quantum drive, but it does not have a jump drive. It's one of the few ships that doesn't have a jump drive that has a quantum drive. It is very compact and sleek, has a lot of firepower for a ship its size, and is, like I said, designed for two people. It's kind of more of a touring ship. But it is a snub. It is a fairly small ship to be able to use it. That is the 85X. Let's move on to the display hall. I don't know if there's much in the display hall. Ah, there is. The bane of my existence. This is the Origin G12A. Now, the Origin G12 is I believe, fairly new system. It's not the only vehicle or ship that Origin has made that has been used by the military. We do know that the 600i version, the luxury version of the 600, does have some usage. Like the military does own a few of them for usage, and of course the 325A was commissioned by the military. But the G12 is one of the first vehicles that seems to have been exclusively be created with the military in mind, that the military has purchased. There's the G12, which is just the regular kind of closed cab rover. Then there is the G12R, I believe, which is the racing version. And then the G12A, which is the military version. Those rockets are actually anti-air rockets, though, as always, an anti-air rocket could possibly be used as a ad hoc artillery if need be. So these, the military has purchased several of these for VIP transport. So it has some defenses with it, but it's designed to be used alongside other military vehicles as well. We don't know when the G12 is coming out. It's been sold since the middle of the 2940s, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's been out yet. So, all right, let's move on. So that is Origin Jumpworks. They have a fascinating history, a lot of drama, a lot of luxury, as it were. They are an interesting manufacturer because very few manufacturers we actually get to know all of the names of the designers. We know the names of the designers, the engineers. We know the names of a lot of the CEOs. We know the design history behind a lot of these ships. Pretty much the only ships in the Origin lineup that we do not have explicit discussions on are the 100 and the G12. Pretty much every other ship that's up there, and to a degree the 600. It has some, but not a lot. Pretty much every other ship that we saw has a detailed history behind it, which is very neat. If you have any questions here in chat or on the floor, let me know. But I will say, if you are enjoying this, please hit that like button if you're watching this after the fact. Subscribe for more content, and hit the bell icon to be notified when these go live. I'll be doing one more of these lore tours tomorrow with Anvil Day. And then that will be it for IAE 2954. Though that won't be the end of videos from this channel. Obviously, I just released a Drake video. Next week, I hope to release another video. We'll see if I can get it out that time in time on the story of Star Citizen, the various different story threads, where the origin of the Star Citizen story is going to be, which is the main conflict, as I mentioned, between Terra and Earth. So keep an eye out for that one. That might slip a little bit later as well, but it should be available this year. And for those of you who are fans of the complete history of Star Citizen lore series, I have part 5 is in editing and should be done before the end of the year, which means that probably by the last week of the year, I'll pull a CG on you and release that towards the very end of the year for you to enjoy. And beginning of next year, I will be combining all 5 of those episodes into a single mega episode that I'm going to be calling The Complete History of Star Citizen Lore, The Golden Age of Exploration, which will be, close to 4 hours long, and it'll be up on my YouTube for those of you who like to watch my long videos. So, question: the 2 original designers, was Otto the pilot? Probably. I'm assuming that Otto and Andres were references to actual real life ship plane manufacturers, but yeah. Question: is there a lore reason for the M50 being on display right by the ship terminals at Loreville? Kind of like how you'd have like a popular sports car like on display sometimes. It's either an art exhibit or it's sort of like an advertisement. What was your favorite Origin ship aesthetically, and what is your favorite from the lore perspective? The M50 is one of my favorite lore perspective because I didn't even go over its history as an interceptor for the advocacy. It was called Branson's Bolts. It's only about 50 of them, and they were specifically built to intercept criminals who were extensively using like very high grade racing ships to smuggle and to do crime in. It was mostly a failure, though they still do exist. Branson's Bolts, they are an elite strike team that comes in at specific times to deal with specific issues. But there's still, the rumors of them existing is everywhere. But they only purchased 50 of them, though the original idea was that the advocacy was going to be replacing all of its Avengers with M50s. That's how big the M50 got in terms of its popularity. But never actually happened. But aesthetically speaking, I will have to say either the X1 or the 300. I like the 300 because it's an older ship, I know, especially in terms of design style, but it is very much that popular mechanics image of a space plane, back from the early 2000s. So. But I like the X1 too for its like kind of bullet aesthetic. It's a gun. It's a gun that's a ship. Is there in-universe reverse explanation for why some ships have tires and some have a flat landing gear? Not necessarily. I assume that one of the reasons why is because airplanes still exist in the Star Citizen universe, or versions of airplanes. So having wheels allows it to taxi under power rather than having to use using ship fuel. A lot of it is going to be just aesthetically is the reason why, but generally speaking, because they don't actually roll in Star Citizen. But you can also tell that a lot of the ships that have flat landing gear are mostly spaceborne. So, like the Gladius, for instance, is rarely going to land on the planet. It is a carrier-based fighter, so it doesn't need wheels. Same with the Hornet and other things like that. Whereas a lot of the ships with wheels are ground-based planes or ground-based aerospace ships. Like the Vanguard isn't a carrier ship. It has a wheel and tank tracks, if I remember correctly. And then most of the 100 series are not designed to be used as carriers, they're designed to be used. 100 and rather 100. Most of the 300 series are designed to be used in traditional ways. Same with the M50. I don't know if the 100 has wheels. I think it does as well. But if the ship is designed mostly to be used in space, it probably has, or live in space, it probably has flat landing gear, just sort of legs. If it's designed to be aerospace, where it mostly lives it stays most of its time on a planet, it's got wheels. 100 has wheels? Yeah. That whizzing sound was a joke right flying by my head. I'm sure. Does Origin Jumpworks still market the 350Rs to sell? If they do, why do they sell it against the M50? Because the 350R is still one of the faster versions of the 300 you can get. It's also has a bed, where the M50 doesn't. So the 350R still has this Porsche 944 vibe to it. It's designed as a luxury vehicle that's supposed to be fast, but it's fast is mostly its flash. That's its aesthetic. Whereas the M50 is designed to be a racer, sold by racing enthusiasts for racing enthusiasts. It's like the difference between owning like a Jaguar and an F1 car. Do we know why the G12 has not released yet? Is there a lore reason? There is no lore reason that we know of. I'm sure there will be one as to why it wasn't released, because CIG loves to adapt their own history into lore in some ways. If you noticed, the 890 had a problem because it was too open in its open development, and so they got lampooned by everyone because of small mistakes. Almost like, I don't know, maybe CIG's working out some frickin' demons in that story. And it's not the only one that has multiple references to actual game, stuff that happens by the company that was used as explanations. So, yeah, 350R also has cargo. Cool. Question: which Origin ship would be good for the Pyro system, other than the long distance or other long distance systems on Pyro and other long distance systems? 315P. The 600 Explorer and the 315P, and to a degree the 400, I think are going to be the best ships. If you had a 315P though, it has more cargo than most other ships of its size. The only ship that has more cargo than it is the Nomad, and it's half the size of the Nomad. It's a single person ship, but it also has its own bed. It has its own, it has everything. I think it even has a shower, if I remember correctly. So it's got a full suite, full complement. It's a little small in comparison. It doesn't have suit storage lockers, but it does have that extra cargo. It has its own tractor beam. It has some weapons to defend it, and it's really fast. The 400i is also a good just Explorer in general, and the 600i Explorer is going to be an absolute beast when it's fully released. Ship range was greatly adjusted recently, so make sure you check the actual values from current gameplay. That will always be the case. But the 300, I doubt that the 300 is going to lose a ton of its range, because the 300's sort of niche is its range. It's always been its range. That's sort of not, it's built into their lore, and the reason why CIG builds that stuff into the lore is because that's what the designers want it to look like. So, because the lore reflects the gameplay rather than the gameplay reflecting the lore. Because they write the lore when they start talking about the gameplay. 600 Eye Touring doesn't have escape pod for guests. Good luck. Any other questions? Alrighty, y'all. Thank you for hanging out with us. We're going to be moving over to the latter part of the stream. If you've been noticing the little timer up there, it's because I'm doing what's called a subathon, where I am streaming for a long number of hours, a maximum of 12, and that timer will go up depending on how much, or will increase in time every time someone donates or gives something in the stream chat in YouTube or on Twitch. And so we've still got 4 hours left, so you can join me on youtube.com/TheAstroPub live afterwards. And if you're watching this live, it'll automatically shift you over. But make sure you follow us there as well. A lot of people don't know that I stream regularly on my own channel, The AstroPub on Twitch and The AstroPub Live on YouTube, because a lot of people know me just as The AstroHistorian. Please do come on and join me live for my own takes, and I do a podcast. We look at some news from Star Citizen, and of course we play other games, like we've been playing MechWarrior 5 Clans. I played Titanfall a bunch of time a few months ago. I checked out a new game called Tales from Seoul, something like that. Stories of the Gundog. It was like Soul Stories, Tales of the Gundog. So there's lots of cool things. We'll be checking out Jump Ship when that fully comes out. We played lots of different games where we play space and science fiction themed stuff. So we'd love to have you there. And yeah, like I said, comment down below any questions you have or comments you have about Origin ships. I'll do my best to answer them there. I am planning on doing an Origin video, a full video of Origin Jumpworks for IAE next year. Maybe not Invictus, but that'll probably be the big video I do around this time next year. So keep an eye out for that. And if you are a Patreon, you will get early access to that, because hopefully I'll do that one in the summer. So I have it prepared, ready to go for when this happens, rather than having to do it the last minute like I did this time. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Thank you for watching. And like I say every time, hope to see you. Oh, wait, no, I can do the right one. And like I always say, ex historia ad astra.